Earth angel, will you be mine? My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. Wah, 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 wah. Welcome to the Voice of Reason. Nothing like starting out with the Penguins, a great band from the 1950s and that Motown magic that you found from Detroit, Michigan. And President Trump speaking on that magic coming back to the United States of America now 6 months plus into an administration focused on bankrolling Detroit and bankrupting Beijing. Quite the opposite of the neocon and neoliberal agenda. On tonight's show, we feature Americans fighting for the Electoral College and teaching in the college campuses the pursuit of this glorious republic, now 250 years young, coming up on that birthday, that anniversary, which will mark this golden era for the United States, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, those combating Hollywood and putting out content that makes sense for the American people, for family members to gather, to enjoy on a daily basis, good, heartwarming television and movies. Also, an individual focus at a nonprofit committed to heroes, veterans, those who wear the uniform, and the fact that they will never be left behind. And I'm coming to you from my busy vacation of fishing, of golfing, some hiking and biking, enjoying God's creation, which I hope you're doing this summertime with those you love, because we need to unplug sometimes and get out there, wear some Tommy Bahama, and enjoy what's around us. Take it all in, because as Ferris Bueller reminded us way back in the day, life moves at you fast, and you might miss it. So make sure you're soaking it up all in during this beautiful summertime in 2025. Now, as we enjoy our summer vacations and the potential return back to school in the coming days, Michael Maibach, the founder and director of the Center for Electoral College and Distinguished Fellow at Save Our States, breaks down the crucial nature of why it is so important for this kind of civics education to be at all levels of our schools. In fact, it's so crucial that we still study why the Electoral College matters in 2025. Please enjoy this interview with Michael Maibach. Welcome to the Voice of Reason, Michael Maibach. He's an expert on the Electoral College, and you can see from the background, very passionate about our founding fathers and the foundation of this nation. Michael, sir, please walk us through why the Electoral College is still so important for our constitutional republic as it stands.
Works well, very well. We're a nation of 50 states and have very different backgrounds, histories, economies, populations. For example, 50% of American people live in 9 states, but the other 41 pretty much feed them, as you can imagine. It takes 5 acres to feed one person for a year. It takes the iron ore of northern Minnesota to assemble and create a Caterpillar or a John Deere tractor. So lots of different attributes in our nation, and we want to make sure presidential candidates don't visit just the big cities, but visit all the different parts of our country that make up such a wonderful republic.
And is that why our founders put this into place? Because at least according to Benjamin Franklin, democracy is like 2 wolves jumping on 1 sheep. You could simply take away the rights of the minority with a simple 51 to 49% if you so wish.
The founders feared majority tyranny. So what we have really in the legislative branch is we have 3 majorities. We have the House passes a bill, then the Senate passes a bill, and then the president, who is elected by a different majority at a different time, signs a bill or vetoes it. So we have concurrent majorities in our republic. And that serves us very well. It's called checks and balances. It's the only reason that we have a free society, in a sense, because of the constant back and forth between the House, the Senate, between the Congress, the President, and the courts.
And why would abolishing the Electoral College end up being a bad thing for our system of government? Because I'm very curious about the bicameral nature of our legislature as well. I believe Nebraska, the only one being unicameral as one body.
That's right.
But please walk us through that, because that's really an interesting thing according to Article 1.
So the Constitution requires that any new state have a Republican form of government. And Madison writes in Federalist 51 that this is a compound republic, and he takes great delight in writing that, in the sense that we have the checks and balances in Washington, D.C., the Congress, the courts, and the presidents. But every state capital has a House, a Senate, and a governor, and a court system. Now, Nebraska just has a unicameral, which is very unusual, but all the other states have the checks and balances fully in place. And the reason that they guaranteed a Republican form of government was because they feared majority tyranny. So those that want to have majority rule have to understand that the founders believed man's nature was broken and it had to be checked. And so that's why we have the checks and balances.
Now, was this an original idea of the Federalists of the time or the Anti-Federalists, or did they actually share in this idea that per Article 1, of course, with Article 2, they were afraid of a king, so looking more for a constitutional president in the executive, but was there any dialogue or disparity between this very idea you're bringing up with the Electoral College?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any anti-federalists, and we have to respect them. My teacher, Herbert Storing, wrote a book on the anti-federalists that I recommend to people. What were the anti-federalists for? Was the title of his book. The controversy about the presidency was real, but I think the anti-federalists were more concerned about the entire federal government becoming too powerful. They were used to having very autonomous 13 states and didn't want to have the aggregation of power. But we didn't decide how to elect the president until the last week of the Constitutional Convention. That was the last thing they decided. And there was a committee of 11, it's called, and they couldn't decide. They debated, should we have a national popular vote? No, because it would always be somebody from Philadelphia, New York, Boston, or Virginia, which had the largest population. The 9 small states were very jealous of the big states. There were big 4 states had most of the people. And so they said, well, should we have the legislature or the Congress elect the president, like the British Parliament, which is the only example they had. And they feared legislative tyranny because in the 13 states had very weak governors, usually 1 or 2 year terms, and the legislatures were pretty robust and powerful outfits, and they didn't want to have the president be a toady or a tool of the legislature. Also, Washington, who never spoke in the convention, would say in the meals he would have with people, you know, for 7 years, I led the army against the British, but I had 13 commanders in chief because the Articles of Confederation and the Continental Congress, every state had 1 vote, and therefore he didn't have any direction at all. And he would say to them, have you ever been on a ship in a storm without a captain? We cannot have a crisis or a war without a commander in chief. And so really, this was a good solution. And because of the checks on the presidency by the Electoral College as well as by the Congress, we do not have a king, and rightly so. We have a mixed regime.
Rarely do world revolutions end up in constitutional republics, and the father of our country, so wise in so many of these deliberations, especially in the way he could read the room, remain rather quiet, and then answer when dignified and needed. In fact, I believe when he took that first oath of office in Philadelphia, it was
New York was his.
Or actually, you know, you're right. Yeah, it's correct. New York. he actually, it was hard for the audience, the people, the citizens, to actually hear him take that oath. And he added the "So help me God." So a special moment to really reflect on the father of our country. Michael, do you believe that the ranked choice voting issue will harm or be a threat to the Electoral College? I know that New Jersey has some of these practices, also the great state of Alaska.
Maine does as well. So 2 states use ranked choice. We at Save Our States, where I work, there's just 5 of us, but we strongly oppose ranked choice voting, and I think all Americans should. It's really a gaming of the system. It's an effort to have a software program continue to look at 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place vote getters until they come out with some sort of what they would say is a consensus, and I would say is a confusion. Ranked choice voting does not allow paper ballots because it has to be a software program. Recounts are very difficult, if not impossible, to do, and it totally confuses voters. Voters, to their benefit, have usually 2 choices, the Republican and Democrat. If we have an independent or a Green Party or whatever, that's fine. But vote for one. Vote for the person you're for. Research about the candidates. But to be required to rank each person 1 through, let's say, 5, with your favorite number 1, but then 2, 3, 4, you'd have to know a lot about each candidate, and then you have to figure out, well, what game is being played? Should I vote a certain way to win this game? And people become distrustful and confused by the system. It would discourage, talk about voter suppression. Ranked choice voting actually discourages people from voting because they say, now it's become this software game and I have no interest in this. Because citizens, don't wake up in the morning and say, the public policy of our city or county is my day job. My day job is my family and my job at work. And they can't be a student of all these candidates on the ballot, 5, 6, 7, perhaps.
And I'm curious, with your expertise, do you believe that there should continue to be direct election of United States senators? Because we have not done that in the entirety of since the birth of our nation. This has rather been over the last 100 years or so, before it was selected by the state legislatures, specifically in regards to how the framers shaped this great nation. And with that question as well, do you believe this should all go to paper ballots for elections and just one-day voting? Or are you okay with all different forms of early voting? Of course, that's different from various states.
Questions. Well, number 1, the 17th Amendment did harm to our federalism because it nationalized every U.S. Senate race. And here's what I mean by that. Until the 17th Amendment, state legislatures chose the U.S. senators. When Lincoln and Douglas were in the debate, then the legislature chose not the voters of Illinois, but the voters of Illinois paid attention. The whole nation paid attention to that debate. What happened when we had the direct election of the senators is 80 to 90% of the money in Senate races for all parties, both parties, comes from outside that state. And so let's say you have a U.S. Senate seat open in, let's say, I don't know, West Virginia. You'll have millions of dollars coming into that state for both candidates from outside the state. And so the poor people of let's say West Virginia say, hey, I'm over here, I'm the voter, but all these people are spending huge amounts of money on their senators' races. So we think it's a bad idea, but turning that around is near impossible in a democratic republic like ours. On paper ballots, I think that they're very healthy to have people trust them. France uses them. All their elections are paper, as I understand it. We do have, a lot of places that use computerized voting, maybe with a paper ballot backup. Alexandria, Virginia, where I vote, we fill out a paper with a pen, we put it in the machine, but that paper is also withheld in addition to the machine counting. So I think that's a healthy sort of backup system. On election day versus election season, Virginia, we have 45 days of early voting, and I believe in Minnesota, 47. This is totally unwise. You have different sets of facts. You might even vote, and then 30 days later the candidate withdraws or is arrested or dies of a heart attack or something. Or maybe the last week of the campaign, new news has come out about somebody's position or their background. So I think that while we could have, let's say, 3 or 4 days of early voting or voting a couple of days, a couple of different weekends, if you've got an excuse, absentee ballot system. But the idea that we have states have 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of early voting, you don't have one mindset anymore among the voters. So that's a bad idea, and I think just a few days voting is much more wise than what we have in Virginia.
Is it proper for now in 2025, nearly 250 years of this great country, as we're in this Jubilee golden era, should we have that convention of states and come back to as close to the intention of what was meant by the gentleman behind you who set the course and path for history that ended up changing the world for the better?
So there are two different groups making efforts to have a convention of states, and some of their goals, I think, are ones I would support. I don't happen to support term limits just myself. I think term limits are called elections. I don't think we need to have term limits, and but that's something one can debate. I think the issue of the convention of states idea has a stark reality in front of it, and that is, under our Constitution, it takes 38 states to amend the Constitution. We can't get 38 state legislatures or state electorates to agree on just about anything in our country right now. So if we do have a convention of states, whatever they would come up with, you have to have 38 states agree to it. And I don't know that we have, we have these blue and red states right now. Mr. Trump just won 31 states when he ran against Biden the first time. They split 25-25, but we've only had 2 ties for states ever in our history. When Bush defeated Gore, it was 30-20. So maybe the best you get in some of these things is about 30 states right now. So I think we have the Constitution that we have right now for a while, and we ought to learn to use it as best we can.
And where can we find the great work of your organization?
SaveOurStates.com. I also am a fellow at the American Constitutional Rights Union, acru.org. Both have my work on them. People can contact me at Save Our States. You can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook as well, at X. I give speeches all over the country for free. We speak to schools, high schools, colleges, Rotary clubs, civic groups, Republican and Democratic groups, whoever will invite us. And speaking fees are quite optional. We only require a parking space in order to give a speech. We have to find a place to park at a venue. But we do a lot of this online as well as in person.
Michael Maibach, thank you for your expertise and for sharing your knowledge of this great constitutional republic for which it stands. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Civics so important to learn about at all ages. Please come back and see us soon on The Voice of Reason.
A pleasure, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you to Michael Maibach for all of his distinguished knowledge on the Electoral College and why it is so crucial to keep this system in our constitutional form of Republican government. Now, there's also trailblazers out in Hollywood. I know it seems as if that far left society in Los Angeles, California, the city of fallen angels, if you will, has had enough with what they've tried to do to manipulate culture. But there are those brave souls who are fighting back to produce good quality, American loving, Christian affirming content. And it's Cara Leopardo, as the co-founder of We the Studios, along with her husband, Curtis, who could not join us for this specific interview. But Cara dives into the need for family-friendly entertainment in order to make America healthy again and ultimately to make America great again. Please enjoy our exclusive interview with Cara Leopardo of We the Studios. And welcome to the Voice of Reason, Cara Leopardo, a founder and the CEO of We the Studios, working very hard to bring a non-woke agenda and such a relief to Hollywood. Please tell us, Cara, about your mission out west.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having us and supporting us. So We the Studios, it's actually pretty simple. We are an entertainment streaming platform. We have men and women and boys and girls in all of our series. We do not have any propaganda. We are not political. We're actually bipartisan, believe it or not, even though we lean extremely conservative. We are making entertainment. We are trying to educate and inspire our viewers. Imagine that.
You know, it's such a relief for me because I started my career as an actor, and it was so hard to find Christian-based entertainment or even the training that was appropriate. And in some rooms, sometimes people will look at you like you were an alien because you believe in Jesus Christ or you believe in the founding documents, or you might have come from a more traditional background. I can't even tell you the amount of times where certain individuals would say, why aren't you coming to this meeting in Los Angeles? You know you're going to have this next big role or not in case you attend. And I said, please just leave me alone. I want to be here to do my craft. So how are you changing that mentality in the city of fallen angels?
You know, I completely agree with you on that. So it all starts in casting. So currently culture, and I think it's always been culture creates, or entertainment rather creates culture. And so we are casting talent. We are casting families that are value driven. They love our country. They love God. They believe in our founding documents. So we are putting people on the screen that are value driven individuals in their personal life. And that really does come through the screen in every single thing that we're doing here at We the Studios.
That's so fantastic to hear that. And I'm sure it's relieving for parents as well to turn on the television or go see a movie in a theater and stream something that's good, high quality family content.
Yes, you know what? It's actually really, I'm glad that you mentioned that because we have 4 children. That was kind of the foundation for everything that we're doing at We the Studios. Is I was really sick of, after working in Hollywood for 17 years and then finding myself in front of the television with my children, turning off of the TV, turning the TV off and saying, what are you watching? What episode was that? Oh, it's a kid's show, but it doesn't really seem like it's for kids. And so, the inspiration for all of this was to make TV not just for children, but for families as a whole. So we don't have any alcohol featured in any of our series. We don't have any sexual innuendos whatsoever, and we don't have any profanity. So it's very important to me as a mom of 4 to say, hey, I'm the one making the content. I'm the one that's deciding what's going to be on the platform. And I'm going to make sure that when your children are consuming our entertainment, that it's safe for them and that you feel good about letting your children consume our content.
Cara, can you take us through your journey and how you got to this point to inspire countless people and share this good quality content? Because to your point, I just think throughout my lifetime, it's sometimes a story it's appropriate where either a living character, you're telling that story, actually did certain things and there's a basis for that story, but it seems more and more, especially within our television programming and all of those sitcoms over the years, that things were going a much more different direction, a much more hopeless direction, much more propaganda. It makes me think of President Ronald Reagan in 1989 leaving the Oval Office saying, hey, I was part of the Hollywood fabric for years and years, but the 1990s are coming. And gosh, now I look back to 2025, the 1990s were wholesome compared to what you can find now with streaming, pay-per-view, to all different kinds of channels. So please walk us through your career and what brought you to this point.
So I worked in Hollywood for 17 years, primarily commercials, print music videos. During my time casting commercials, print music videos, a major network approached me to appear in my own reality show. And so while I had a pilot episode and it aired on TV only once, that was a great blessing for me because it opened my eyes to the reality space. This was back in 07, 08. And it just kind of showed me how quick to market reality TV could be. This whole process for me took about 10 weeks. So that took me outside of casting, put me behind the cameras additionally, and I started working for major networks casting their talent for actual reality shows. So I would get very specific leads. If they wanted, you know, a certain gender, a certain height, or a certain occupation, I would be able to find it nationwide. And the leads started getting increasingly progressive, increasingly racist, and just there was no values in the leads. And the last lead that I took was to find pronoun kids. This was in 2013. So that kind of lends to how long Hollywood has kind of been at the destruction of the minds of our children and our families. So 2013, I was asked to find pronoun kids. Their definition of a pronoun kid was a child between 11 and 14 years old, living at home with their parents with their approval, that did not have a gender and that went by pronouns. I mean, just imagine that. So that was mind blowing for me. My husband and I only had 2 children at the time, and we just decided, you know, we did not want to partake in this. We're value driven. We have young family, young kids, and we walked away from the business for just about 10 years. And over that 10 years, we have seen what has happened to the streaming platforms in Hollywood, where it's just gone increasingly woke. They've, you know, trained our children and polluted their minds that boys could become girls and girls could become boys. And I just said, you know what? I have a unique set of skills. I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't act, but I'm a great producer. I'm a great casting director. And let's just go ahead and make TV for normal people. So we launched We the Studios, a streaming platform. We make all of our own content. You know, as a mom of 4, I have 3 sons, and I do see that our men are under attack. You know, fathers currently, when you're looking on television shows, the dad's always the big doofus. He's like, oh, golly gee, he never knows best. The mom's kind of the airhead, and the kids are always right. And that's not the way it is. Mom and dads know best. Children need to mind their parents, and we are highlighting these types of families at We the Studios.
It's so exciting that you would put your faith and your belief system in the family, because for some reason Hollywood, they have wanted to attack the family. And why do you think that is? Just having a career in Hollywood for all of these years, especially behind the camera and producing, why would they want to break up the family? It's the cornerstone of civilization.
I think it's real simple. We're at a battle right now between good and evil, and the devil is nothing but a complete liar who seeks to destroy. And if you destroy the nuclear family, you can destroy our country from the inside out without a single shot. So I really do think it's the difference between good and evil. I think it's the difference between, you know, good families rising to the top. And, you know, we can make this country what it once was, but we're only going to do that with strong men leading our country, with strong men leading our families, and young men getting married and having families of their own someday.
And share some of us with your latest content. Can you share any projects coming up and where our viewers can find this great family wholesome content that might even inspire especially young men to take up their cross and take up their arms peacefully and patriotically to lead into this golden era of America?
Always peacefully and always patriotically, of course. So we are at wethestudios.com. That's where you can subscribe for $3.99 a month. It's the least expensive streaming platform by far. And we have 5 original series currently available on our platform. We have a beautiful family in Kentucky that's raising 4 children from Kentucky foster care. We have a show that just launched out of Miami. It's on a father that's running a med spa. He's a divorced dad, but he's raising his daughter with values, and he's extremely involved in her life because we recognize there are divorced families in America, and we want to show those fathers that they can still be really, really great dads, even if their chips fall, you know, find themselves in a divorce. We also have a show out of Chicago called That Girl Lola. This is for every little girl in the country. Lola wants to be a famous singer and an actress, but she's doing it from a value-driven standpoint. So we really do have something for everybody on the platform.
It's exciting to see entertainers and people with these gifts bestowed by God that they want to go out there and share that biblical message. It's happening in the new media. It's happening in this new form of entertainment. And thanks be to God for the streaming access and the time that we live, because we can rally back and save the culture as a result. And would you say so goes Hollywood, so goes the culture? It's been something that's really inspired and persuaded people for countless generations now.
You know, I hate to see what's happening in Hollywood currently. I have some really good friends that are secret conservatives, unfortunately, that have suffered from the fires and suffered from the lack of work. But Hollywood has done it to themselves. They have eaten themselves alive. They have continued to make content that doesn't align with traditional American values. And if you see what's happening at the box offices and the streaming platforms and the layoffs, it's because real Americans, they're sick of the woke agenda and they're just craving something more. And we're here to fill that need for them.
And again, Cara Leopardo, the founder and president of We the Studios. Where can everyone find your great content and then go to subscribe?
So thank you so much. So we are on wethestudios.com. We're also on Roku, Fire Stick, Amazon, Apple Store, anywhere that you can stream content, you can find We the Studios. But first, you have to go ahead and sign up at wethestudios.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. Again, Cara Leopardo from We the Studios. You're always welcome back on The Voice of Reason.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Cara Leopardo, We the Studios, an amazing culture warrior. And that's what it's about on The Voice of Reason, being unafraid to speak your mind and speak your piece. The late, great Hulk Hogan spoke on that very topic, that although he came out as a tough guy, as a bodybuilding wrestling icon, a great actor as well, an entertainer, he said his words, "I was afraid to speak my mind." But after the assassination attempt on President Trump, I had to share my ideas and my opinion with the world, and ultimately sharing with us the gospel of Jesus Christ. And isn't it exciting now to live in an era where you can speak your mind? Seemingly, it's gone in the other direction, and freedom of speech back in the United States because of great patriots like you, the viewers here on The Voice of Reason, who have stood up for the truth, not only at the ballot box, but because on a daily basis you make a difference in your communities. And that's to be said about our next guest, Judy Elias. She is the co-founder and CEO of Heroes to Heroes, a foundation focused on protecting veterans and what happens when they come back from global conflicts to serve this great nation here at home. Sometimes PTSD is a scary topic. Mental health must be discussed not only in the halls of Congress or in the executive branches of our government, but in each and every community and church and synagogue in order to serve our neighbors and serve those brave souls who chose willingly to serve in this capacity, putting uniforms on, willingly ready and able to sacrifice on behalf of their great country. Judy is doing outstanding work. Please enjoy this next interview. Welcome to The Voice of Reason, Judy Elias of the Heroes to Heroes Foundation. Please tell us what your great organization is doing to combat anti-Semitism and to encourage community activism for the betterment of everyone across America.
Robert, thank you so much for having me on your show. It means a lot, especially in these tough times. And what Heroes to Heroes does is we provide spiritual healing and peer support for veterans who have attempted suicide or are on a path to self-destruction due to moral injury. Now, what does that have to do with anti-Semitism? How does it all connect? What we're finding is many of our veterans are, our suicide rate is anywhere from 17 to 22 a day. When you speak to veterans, they'll tell you it's more than that. What we do is our program helps veterans find who they are, why they are, and the whole history of their faith and connection to the United States, connection to Jesus, connection to God, and connection to one another. And our program starts, number one, with values. And I think we don't emphasize values enough in this country. Who are we? Why do we believe what we believe? What makes us who we are? And the first thing we do with the veterans we work with is talk about, what are your values? Who are you? who is the person who left the military, not the person in the military. So we focus, when they're in the military, they're dealing with military values, which they must live by, whether, they're in because they believe in that, they believe in the military, but who are they when they return? And so we help them refine those values. Who are you as a person? And I think once you start delving into who am I, and you take people away from society's values and the garbage values that we've taught our children, for example, on college campuses, you start to find the real person, the person God created, not the person the state is creating and culture is creating. So we start with that. We bring them through a 10-day journey to Israel. Why Israel? It's the only place they can explore their faith where it all belongs, where it all began. Why their faith? About 80% of vets will tell us that God wishes they were dead, of the vets we serve, because they're dealing with a moral injury. They're dealing with shame. Anything from killing to watching someone else be killed. They bring this home with them. So they take this journey through Israel. Not only do they meet IDF vets, but they find out who Jesus was. About 98% of the veterans we serve are Christians. Who was he? How did he live his life? Well, he lived and died as a Jewish person. And when you start to understand who he was, how do you hate his people? How do you pray to this person every day and then hate who he was? And I think that's a very important part of anti-Semitism we miss. So our program works on that. It works on understanding the reality on the ground in Israel, but it also helps them just navigate here what's going on. And this country has just turned into, as a Jewish person, a nightmare for all of us, for me and my family. And my grandfathers fought for the U.S. Army. My father fought for the U.S. Army. My uncle, my husband fought for the Air Force. They were all signed up to give their lives. And now we're being treated as if we're not citizens. We're not asking to be a special group. Jews never asked to be special. We asked to be left alone to do what we want to do. And we don't like the idea that there's all this attention. We don't want this. We want to just go and live our lives. We're not looking to be a protected class. We're looking to live here safely, to have our children go to college and be able to attend classes. That's not asking for something special. Now, there's been hate on the left, for very vocal hate since 2019 in the halls of Congress. But now it's spread. Once it started with the halls of Congress, it easily spread. And here we are trying to navigate these waters and saying, wait, it's not, I can understand ignorant people. I don't understand our government. I don't understand Chuck Schumer being quiet for the past 6 years. And Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and AOC and going on down the line. And now the crew is growing and growing in the Democratic Party. And not a single condemnation from the top. And it actually was the opposite. Rewards for it from the top. Nancy Pelosi handing Ilhan Omar $10,000. And I'll never forget that moment, saying, where is her moral clarity? She's supposed to be a leader. And this is where we're leading our government, which is where we lead our people.
So many thoughts and reflections I'm having as you speak, Judy, so eloquently on this. And do you think there's a core reason for that? Because we see that on the far left, there's somewhat of an abandonment of culture, tradition, and just simple respect for those who might be different, but granted, not that different, because the Jewish story, very similar to that of many ethnic groups, whether it was coming to New York or to Chicago or other big cities throughout the 19th, 20th century for a better way of life. You just think about the traditional immigrant story of America and how inspiring it is to countless Western and Eastern Europeans. In fact, really everyone from around the world, because that's what's so unique about America still. Although many countries post-World War II have some form of freedom, mostly because of the United States, because of our efforts not only to defend our homeland, but to defend an entire continent. But it's these ideals and these values that have lasted nearly 250 years that allow people to come here legally and become Americans, regardless of their ethnic or religious or socioeconomic background.
Well, my grandfather came here and sold apples on the street of the Lower East Side. Okay, nothing was handed to them. They lived in a tenement with another family, and everybody shared one public bathroom somewhere and a two-room apartment. And they did anything they could. My grandmother was a seamstress. She started working at the age of 11, but to support her family. They were doing whatever they could because they knew this country was the greatest place in the world. My grandmother ended up she did girdles. She did, for Broadway stars. She had a very, very big business in New York. But they came from zero, and they expected nothing except a free country. That's all they wanted. They were kicked out of Russia. They were kicked out of all these other places that have different names now. Some from Kiev. But now what's happening is people don't want to work. Look, people are being encouraged not to work by our government, by the system. We're going to give you all of these safety nets. Now, my grandparents had no safety nets. They came and they made it work. And everything we built in this country, we're very proud of. And one thing that is in the core of this whole anti-Semitism thing is the Jewish people remind people that there's a God. We remind people that there's a morality. We brought moral code, moral law to the world. And we've been hated for it ever since. And when you look at the Democratic Party and the belief system, where it came to, starting when Barack Obama came into office, where everything is okay as long as it's not faith, God, Israel. And Christians also get persecuted in that scenario. And we watched in the past 4 years, we watched our country go upside down morally, where criminals have more rights than the average citizen, where I have to worry about my grandchildren going to school because they're going to go to a Jewish day school. Because if they go to a public school, they're probably going to be beat up, whatever. God only knows what will happen, and indoctrinated to hate themselves. And so we've got to protect our children. And this country had a very good history of protecting our children. And now we're subjecting our children to adult decisions that they have no capacity until they're 25, 26, 27 years old. Their brains aren't formed. And we see that with the kids on campuses. So, there's a need for belonging. There's a need for just feeling a part of something. And when you have an 18 to 24-year-old whose brain's not formed, the easiest way to belong is in a hate group, because there's no All you have to do is hate. That's it. You don't have to have any skills. You don't have to have any intelligence. You don't have to have any, it doesn't matter what your background is. You don't have to be secure. All you have to do is hate. There's such a low bar for entry that it's easy. And we've created this society of lonely people, victims, people who feel like they're owed. And the US doesn't hand that much to you. If you're a citizen and you've gone through school, you're expected to work. It's what we do. And it's how we get fulfilled. And when these kids are in school and they don't feel like they're that popular, they don't feel like they're whatever. Low bar, go to hate. Hamas, what Hamas did in Israel. Okay, these kids they would choose the kid who was teased. They would choose the heavy kid. They would choose the kid who was really unattractive and say, you want to be a hero? We know how sad you are. You want to be a hero? You strap this bomb to you and walk to the border. And when that guy does, you hit this button, you'll blow up and we'll name streets after you. Your parents are going to get rich. And that's how they abused children in Gaza, okay, and in the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria. And when the kids started chickening out, they would blow them up remotely. Okay, so this is the death culture that our students between the ages of 18 and 24 are getting involved with. This is the death culture that's supported by many in the Democrat Party. And also we're seeing it with Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk. We have to be fair in our party too. The two of them should be shunned, condemned for spreading anti-Semitism, for taking money from Qatar, from all of these places. Follow the money and you'll see where the hatred is coming from. But there's so much to unpack here, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you. There's just, the news keeps coming in, and every day it's someone else. But we've created a society of victims. We've created a society of lonely young adults and lonely people who are looking for any way to belong. And anti-Semitism is easy. Because if you hate the Jews, then you don't have to worry about your behavior. We remind people that there's a moral code. We remind people that there's a God. What's going on in Israel now is miraculous. And if you look at the way things happened October 7th until now, you see those miracles. And how can you deny God? Why should the Jews still be here? Why should I still be here practicing as a Jew? Every single generation has tried to kill me, kill my family, kill my ancestors. But here I am, we're surviving. The Romans are gone, the Babylonians are gone, the ancient Persians are gone. They're all gone. And we're here. And that's very threatening to most people. But all we want is to be left alone, to be who we are. We're happy to contribute to society. A big portion of the philanthropy in the United States and around the world is from Jewish hands. And we're happy to contribute. Science, technology, and all that. We just want to be left alone. And you know what? You can have everything that's built in our hands. We've never even, I don't know, said no to anyone. And yet, maybe that's the wrong way to do it. I just saw something. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was curious about your build bridging activities, because how is that countering what is at times a very sad and dark history, especially when you look at the 20th century, what took place in World War II, and that groupthink you were speaking of specifically on those who might be looking for an outlet, and how hate, sadly, can inspire others to be part of the so-called proverbial club, whether that's fascism, communism, any sort of group think that would allow something like that to happen in a private or public setting. So how are you trying to reverse that in order to serve your fellow citizens and also those who are most vulnerable?
Well, it's a combination of helping people understand where they come from and the value of where they come from, and also understanding the Jewish people, why we do what we do. Uh, my husband and I, my whole entire family, we're Orthodox Jews. So we observe the holidays. We're going into our Sabbath, the Shabbat, this evening. So from, I think it's around 8 o'clock tonight, just before, until 9 o'clock tomorrow night, we don't use the phone. We don't drive. We don't use money. My kitchen, if you walk into my house now, you smell the foods. We prepare. But this is the way, if people understand the way Jesus lived. Okay, so there's a real connection there, and we're still living that way. And the more people understand about us, who we are, what we do, our holidays, the way we think, the way we raise our children are our treasures. And our job is to teach them their history, who they are, raise them to be good people. You don't see a lot of Jews in the correction system. There are some, but you don't see a lot. We don't raise our children that way. We have a hand, it's a very strong family bond. And we teach them where they came from. History is everything. Our job as parents is to train our children, is to teach our children who they are and why they are and what's expected of them. And I'll never forget my little one, who's now in his 30s, and he was actually part of the first Trump administration. He said to me when he's 6 years old, he said, it was one Sabbath, and he said, "Mom, I bet if I turn on the TV, God's not going to strike me dead." And I turned to him and I said, "Well, that's between you and God." And never to this day, that was it. Teaching them responsibility, teaching them it's what I do with my life and decisions I make are what affect me. And my trust in God and trusting that God is there for us. And that's so important. And when we're all in that space, we're in a good space, because God didn't create us all so we'd all be one person. He created me as a Jewish person because he decided that's where I was going to be, and that's where he wanted me. And if we believe in God and truly believe in God, and that everyone on this earth is a child of God, we can all live together. And a big part of what we teach and what we help people understand is that we're non-judgmental. We're all part of this mosaic, and it's God's mosaic. And he created us the way he created us because that's what we're supposed to be for him, and that's how we're supposed to worship him. You're a Christian. You're supposed to worship him in the Christian tradition. I worship him in the Jewish tradition. But it doesn't mean we're any less or more than each other. We're each fulfilling something that God has asked us to do. And when we work with the veterans and we talk about what is it, your personal mission that God has you here for? It didn't start and end in Afghanistan or Iraq or Desert Storm. That was a part of your journey. He brought you home to continue that mission. And as we see people and we teach people to see their life as, first of all, important. I'll never forget the line, God doesn't create junk. Okay? God put us all here because we have a mission, and our job, and I was taught this as a young child, My job is to help make this world a better place than when I came up. Then I stepped my first foot on it, when I made my first screen. Okay, I'm supposed to do something to make the world a better place. And if all of us collectively, how many billions of us around the world started to look at ourselves as God's children and the people around us as God's children, and that we all have a mission and God put us all here, then we can start to have peace. We can start to help each other. And one of the things that comes out of our program is that respect of other people. That's, first of all, the understanding of other faiths, the understanding of people, and wanting to help people be the best they can be, and be positive and be good to themselves so they can be good to other people.
And Judy, where can we find your work at Heroes to Heroes Foundation? How can people help you out to support the veterans who are in need of when they do come home? I think about the Chris Kyle story. I think about so many others where the mission is not necessarily over, and it takes a village, in a sense, to bring everyone back into, I don't like to say normal, but normal life, because what they see is truly extraordinary. It's rare that any of us will have to face that moment of taking another life or vice versa. So it's extraordinary, those who put on a uniform day in and day out to protect their fellow citizens.
Right. Well, we need your help, of course, financially and volunteers. We are adding a military transition program to our program, so people do not have to have a diagnosis when they get out of the military. We want to help them that first year transition back to civilian life. You can reach us at heroes2heroes.org, HeroesToHeroes.org. And my name is Judy Elias. I'm the founder. And feel free to reach out to me, Judy at heroes2heroes.org. Thank you.
Judy Elias of Heroes to Heroes, the foundation working hard to advocate for veterans, and something that is so worthy and a great cause. Thank you for joining us on The Voice of Reason, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you to Judy Elias for such insight, the founder and CEO of Heroes to Heroes Foundation. And with this day in history, August 7th, many significant dates, including the 1964 Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. The United States Congress passed this resolution granting President Lyndon Baines Johnson broad authority to escalate military involvement in the Vietnam War. And we know how sad that was and what a travesty that political war played out. His successor, Richard M. Nixon, did what he could to end that conflict, but it was a situation where the Voice of Reason believes we should not have been involved. And like we were involved in that terrible conflict, blowback, which the CIA likes to aptly coin the term, President Johnson should have gotten the job done. In fact, he is one of the worst presidents in American history. Also, on August 7th of 1998, the embassy bombings in East Africa, terrorist attacks targeted U.S. embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Tanzania, resulting in numerous casualties. Really a tragedy for the African continent, and a stain on the legacy of President Bill Clinton, because at the time he was in the middle of dealing with a scandal he created. His predatory sexual practices against an intern. And on The Voice of Reason, we believe that that was the case. We know he was an individual who was on that Lolita Express at least 28 times to our knowledge, and had great association with the late Jeffrey Epstein. Justice will be served, God willing, in that case, as he ruined countless lives as a result of his actions. President Bill Clinton, in fact, one of the worst presidents in American history. But how about the positive about August 7th, 2007? Barry Bonds' 756th home run. And that was in the San Francisco Giants, as he did that, breaking Hank Aaron's long-standing record. Through this accomplishment was later clouded by allegations of steroid use. Still a remarkable achievement regardless. Barry Bonds in 2007, on August 7th, 756 home runs, breaking the all-time record of the Atlanta Braves legend, Hank Aaron. And we hope you're enjoying baseball season as well, as we have football soon to be underway and summer winding down in this great golden era that President Trump is providing with his team's leadership. And we'll stay on this on the Voice of Reason. We're a dash of that classic Western flair. It's punchlines, it's politics. So join us every Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern for just that. I'm Robert McNeily. I have to get back to the honey hole and catch some more fish. Hope you enjoy your beautiful summer vacations as well. And we'll see you next week on the Voice of Reason.